Hey guys, good morning. Michael Clark with BAMWX.com with your latest long-range forecast update. We're going to talk about winter. Is it going to get cold? Is it going to get warm? You're seeing all the things, the conflicting signals on Twitter and X or whatever you want to call it, social media. Everybody talking about all the different model runs, and we're going to talk about what we think is going to happen here, okay? We're going to look at a level-headed, a bias-free analysis here. And long story short, I think we've got some winter in store for us. I don't think it's over by a long shot. And let's get into it. Share it with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep yourself updated. It is Wednesday, December 11th, just a little after 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Radar is busy this morning. A big storm up and down the East Coast. It's warm out ahead of that, so not a lot of snow going on with that. But back out further to the west where it's colder, there's more Arctic air. We've got snow across the Dakotas, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, eventually working into Indiana. And clarity is great for that because it can give us a nice look ahead to this interactive 24-hour snowfall forecast map that updates every hour, by the way, and gives you the latest forecast information. You can see what it's looking at down here. Fully interactive, we can zoom in. Again, we've got a little bit of a clipper and some snow squalls coming through the area. Here, the Ohio Valley and the interior northeast tonight. And the next 24 hours up here across the just east of Erie, another foot or so of snow on the table, right? The other thing to look at here is a little bit of ice being mixed in here up across the north and east as well. Forecast for snow the next 7 days continues to look like it's focused around the lakes area for sure and the higher elevations up there back across the Pacific Northwest. The rainfall forecast the next 7 days does continue to show some rain though. Check this out, 7-day rain totals here across central Indiana, 1.5 inches, 2 inches down to Kentucky, western Tennessee as well. And very, very wet up there in the East Coast with 2-3 inch rainfall forecasts next 7 days. So a lot of talk out there this morning, a lot of talk about, cold. It hasn't been cold, it's not cold, or whatever the case may be, or it says it's going to be and it's not, or so many different interesting takes on situations. We just want to look at the facts, right? These are maps here that are self-generated based on the departures from normal. This is the first 9 days of December, and it's been cold in the east. How about that, right? And warmer back into the west. All right, I looked at years that had very similar patterns to this. 2004 had a very similar pattern here, cold and east. A little bit warmer up and further to the west and northwest, though, or up to the north and northwest, if you will. 2010, obviously very, very cold. A lot of us probably remember that winter. Okay, 2004 similar with the East Coast cold, and 2005 probably a closer match in terms of the overall orientation, but a lot of similarities here in the pattern right now versus those years. There's also years that go further back, such as 1993 and 1995, that have very similar tropical forcing patterns that I want to discuss here in a little bit. But this is a look at the analog package for December. We look at the years that I personally like for the overall analog setup. And again, here's those years right now that I like. I like these years. I would toss in 13 as well. The only reason I didn't use 13 in this particular analog set is because of the month-to-date temperature departures in the pattern. I'm just going off of what the pattern's doing right now. All right, but there are a lot of similarities in 2013 with the location of the Hudson Bay vortex, the positive T&H pattern we've talked a lot about. There is a lot of similarities there. Precipitation departures in these years for December. Overall, they were drier than average. You can see the week 2 forecast has a very similar thought process. It's wetter to the PNW here a little bit. This is a little wetter out to the west. Generally speaking, the pattern is matching the analog set to a degree. Okay, and then the temperature pattern. You can see this was the temperature pattern. This is where the core of the coldest departures was focused in these years combined as average. But the general idea, the general layout of the colder departures being east of this, very similar to that of the model data. Not a lot of differences there. And this is the 7 to 12 day outlook from the latest European ensemble. What do these years do rolled forward into January from a simplistic approach, right? Well, what they do is they get pretty active up in here. You have normal to slightly above normal precip here, and then you have largely above normal precipitation signals here in the Ohio Valley up into the north and east. And these years were loaded with winter storms. The temperature pattern continued, all right, albeit what happened is the ridging out here became a little bit more slanted northwest to southeast, as a bigger North Pacific ridge developed, a negative EPO pattern there developed in those years. All right. In fact, I want to show that to you. This is a look at the at those years in the 500 millibar heights. All right. And what happened is essentially we took what was a predominant PNA plus PNA pattern for a little bit, and we started to pull back the Pacific jet stream. The tropical forcing became a little bit more in favor, and this again, a big North Pacific ridge developed. All right. Now, something that I want to throw in here is that a couple of these years, including 2013, 93 or 94, 96, this is rolled out into January pattern, by the way, also indicated some gradients here. Now, a couple of the other years throw off the southeastern ridge, the southeastern gradient, but there was a gradient here, and there was a lot of really strong North Pacific blocking in these years that are similar to how we're starting versus where we're going. So in those years, what we did, here's some fun. We plotted snowfall departures from normal, okay? Brett Waltz here does a great job with that stuff and plotting these maps. But look at the snowfall departure from normal forecast for January of 25 using our analog set. For the most part, a big takeaway is where it got very active. All right, the snowfall was much above normal, and there were some big snows in here. All right, some really big snows as we got late December into January, and also a lot of clipper action up into the northern plains. And so I say all that to say that I think that this pattern has plenty of opportunity. All right, let's talk the short term real quick. Let's talk about the short term. This is the AI, which is the artificial intelligence weather model. All right, it's done pretty decent. There's the storm going up the East Coast. All right, and I want you to watch this is the 0 degree line at 850. That's where you're going to have the separation and precip types. Okay, it's cold. We've got a storm system coming in this weekend, Saturday into Sunday, that will offer up rain and snow into the Great Lakes. Rain further south, thunderstorm activity possible there. A little bit too warm for any big wintry events with that particular storm system. And then another one comes through. Another area of low pressure, rain, thunderstorms perhaps in the deep south. Colder in the far northern Great Lakes, but this one pulls in some cold behind it. This is next Monday into Tuesday. And then we watch a storm system develop. Now, a couple of models are varying where they put this area of low pressure, but this one may have at least a better potential the 19th through the 21st to perhaps offer up somewhere in here a shot at accumulating snow. All right, whether it's north or south of this area, I don't know. It's too soon to know. There's no reason to try and figure it out and play the guessing game. But the 19th to the 21st of December, there's a storm system in there that could offer snow for the area there that I just drew. Okay, I want to keep that mention there. It brings in a big cold front. That's a shot of Arctic air. All right, Arctic high comes down, 1041 area of high pressure. Getting into the 21st of December, another big storm riding up along the coast. This is another storm date around the 22nd to the 24th. There's probably going to be a pretty decent sized storm to track. Its exact impacts, there's no way to know right now. There's no way to know who gets what and where. But we're going to keep a storm in the charts here closer to the holiday. The artificial intelligence of the European keeps the Arctic air in place for the most part, especially in the Great Lakes and the Northeast through Christmas. Brings a little clipper system through. But out through the evening of the 25th, the northern half and the northeast of the country is below normal temperatures. And listen, the reason I'm in favor of a more active pattern, I know that the week 2 models are very dry. And for a time, they could be as the Arctic front comes through. But I think that they might be a little bit too dry, especially day 11 and beyond. And I'm going to talk about why. Look at the North Pacific here. Look at the constant barrage of low pressure centers across the Bering Sea and the chain of the Aleutian Islands. Look what it's doing, by the way, to surface pressure as each big, massive storm comes through the Bering Sea. A lot of high pressure up here. And this is going to drive heat fluxes too, by the way, into the upper levels of the atmosphere that will impact the polar vortex, which I'm going to talk about that. All right. But a lot of big storm systems indicate that, 15 to 20 days later, these big storm systems can show up in the U.S. And that's fully what I anticipate to happen. I think for the most part, the active pattern continues. So I think the GEFS weekly forecast, if we are looking at the week 2 forecast from this model right now, it does show a corridor of normal to slightly above normal precip chances in through here. And I think that might be a better approach right now. And it's certainly getting into week 3. It's very active here to end the week, the last week of December, as I think there's a big storm or two in the mix in this particular time frame. Okay, look at the temperatures. All right, one thing that the models haven't done well is continue seeing the continued cold shots here into the short term. And so that's why I want to show the AI data. This is the 0 to 5 day forecast. So you argue essentially right now that the first 15 days of December in this area here are going to be below normal. The first 15 days of the month, you're below normal here. So December's off to the coldest start it's seen in a long time, especially into the east. Now we moderate a little bit, and we can see where it does. We do have this moderation period, especially through the 12th through the 20th or so of the month. It's really warm. But watch as we start rolling in through 5-day chunks. As soon as the 17th through the 22nd rolls around, we start working below normal in again. All right, so you can see here by the end of the forecast period, we're kind of back to that pattern. And this is really the 21st to the 25th here for Christmas. It's below normal temperatures in the east. You toss in any storm systems, and you want to argue that a lot of people may have the opportunity at a white Christmas, right? That'd be fun. But this is what I want to show you. Watch what happens to the pattern here. I'm going to stop in the 5 to 10. Okay. Watch the evolution in the Pacific. Watch this happen. Watch the evolution low. This is the AI data again. Watch what starts to happen with that ridge out west. It really, again, starts to get pretty aggressive, and it starts to pull back a little bit, what we call retrograde, if you will. And you can see what I'm talking about here. This is actually the new run as I'm talking coming in. This only goes out to day 10. Let me go back to the previous run from last night. Very similar. But watch what I'm talking about here as big storm digs in. There's a big low right there. See it go up a coast, the one I talked about. But look what happens to those Pacific heights. And look at the higher latitudes here and the blocks going on near Scandinavia. Look at that Scandinavian ridging going on. It's very interesting to me, right? And so a number of things I'm seeing here is that the Pacific jet is gonna start to try and retract again a little bit, but the base state is supporting North Pacific blocking. If the jet can relax, maybe we get a westerly wind burst across in our zonal winds that can help really ignite the EPO again. Point being, there's writing on the wall that the pattern can come back and come back colder. And I know the models are struggling with this immensely with the warm, cold flips. The EPS the last couple of days has gone colder and trend-wise. I just think we can't write off the cold. Listen, last year it was different. Last year we were like, hey, it's going to get warm. MJO phase 4, it's high amplitude, I think is what it was last year. It got really warm. This is the other piece of the puzzle I want to talk to you about. This is the stratospheric polar vortex, or the polar vortex in general. I want you to really keep your eye up here near China, near the other side of the planet. Watch how cold it is at the start of the forecast. You see the yellow or the blues and the purples. Watch what starts to happen. Watch the warming start to take shape. Okay, that's out by about 7 days from now. A sudden flip. Watch where the coldest air goes. Okay, watch where it goes. Right down into the tap here into Canada and the northern U.S. That's the stratospheric polar vortex. It's core where some of that coldest air is going to be. And look at the significant warming showing up. Okay, and then as we go out, watch the Atlantic start to get into play here. That PV is by the way, it's alive and well right there. It's over the United States, by the way. And massive warming in the stratosphere on both sides, the Pacific and the Atlantic. And you send the vortex over into the United States. And that's, interestingly enough, it's what the European is doing. Now, watch its response in the temperature departures, okay? Because this was really warm at one time. Watch the first shot. You can see where the source region's coming from. It's just sending shots of Arctic air in from Canada. But look at that. That's really, really cold. Okay, in terms of temperatures from normal, this is the 23rd of December. Okay, there's Christmas Eve. Out through the end of the forecast, you're just continuing to shoot, shots of Arctic air into the area, and all of a sudden, its week 2 outlook looks like this. So the vortex is in a favorable state for this to be continued shots of cold. And if the North Pacific blocking can come back, that's what I want to focus on. Last thing is the MJO. Okay. All the different models are taking it. They're moving it, right? They're killing it a little bit and reemerging it. The CFS is continuing to take it through. Some things to note here that these models have in common is they're trying to indicate a high amplitude phase 7 being possible, with the exception of the Australian Bureau of Meteorology. But the CFS really seems to be indicating this, probably the most overall accurate depiction. If I had to guess, maybe a blend between the two of these. Once the European can get out of the maritime continent, it'll do better. Regardless, most models are forecasting the evolution of the MJO. Okay. So, with that said, let's look at this. Here's phase 6 of the MJO in a La Nina in December. All right. It's very similar to right now. This is why I don't have a problem with it. It's got the big Pacific North American ridge, the PNA, and the trough in the east. There's no reason to disagree with that. You watch the evolution of it into phase 7. We would go to January for phase 7. Watch the ridge retrograde. Look at the Scandinavian blocking still happening here, and the North Pacific ridge trying to establish. Big trough comes in. Okay, you get that cross-polar flow. You're forcing that Arctic air down in the area. And then La Nina at phase 8. And the reason I'm using the La Nina, the negative ENSO correlations, is not only sea surface temperatures, but the pattern's really reflective of this in the SOI, in the Southern Oscillation Index. But you can see the continued support of this into phase 8 if we were to go that route. There's one other reason why I think we go into phase 8, or 6, 7, and 8, if you will. The angular momentum is going positive. This should kickstart or force the MJO to move across the Pacific Ocean. And by the way, a positive angular momentum correlation into January is colder. So a kickstart in the propagation of this favors eastern U.S. colder risks late December into January. Right. So I've talked about a lot here, but here's what I think is going to happen. I think it's an active pattern. I think we're going to start going to work against the polar vortex, especially getting into phase 7. It's a huge indicator of a stratospheric warming risk, and we stretch the vortex. Right. The vortex is stretching. I'm not saying we're going to split it in half. What I'm saying is it's in a favorable state to be stretched and to be tapped into, and that's where a lot of that 2013 analog comes into play. You look at this, and it's just an elongated, stretched out vortex with plenty of storm tracks to come in and pull that cold air down. Okay, so what does it mean? Well, here you go. So here's what it means. Week 3, the 23rd to the 29th of December. Bottom line, colder in the east, warmer west. It's as simple as I can put it. Is it going to be -10 or -3? I don't know right now. I think the risk has to be that it's colder in the east. After a mild period, mid-month, I think this comes back, and possibly a little bit sooner than what we thought. That's the week 3 idea. Here's the week 4 idea, 29th through the 4th of January. I think that the bigger shot of cold can come as the vortex is really getting shredded apart towards the end of the run, or at least elongated and really worked on, and the North Pacific blocking can come back. Okay, that's the big question. I mean, here's the all model look at the EPO, right? You see the big spread here, and we've got to see that make a return, and we need to see this PNA relax. The PNA go negative, the EPO go negative. That's when the pattern will start to flip, or that ridge retrogrades. That's the ticket, and the MJO has to move for it to do that. We think it does, we think it can, and we think this might be the outcome if that happens. So it's a forecast. Just as much as it could be right, it could also be wrong, but that's what we do, is we predict the future. So we got a 10-day stretch of mild weather coming, period, and not a ton of winter storms. Okay? I think closer to 19th to the 21st and beyond, we're going to see more of this and more cold available on tap. And one of these storms is probably going to bring down a pretty big push of Arctic air. But I would say another big shot of really cold air by the 20th or so of December. We'll keep you posted.